My boy Tai, what's up? Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me. Good. I just wanted to vibe and really talk success, talk entrepreneurship, and really talk millennials. I wanted to get your take on the current state of millennials and just overall, man, talk success. Tell me this, you've obviously created an amazing lifestyle for yourself. Was it always like this, or I remember stories of you obviously sleeping on the couch, struggling.
Right.
So people don't see that a lot. They just see the house, the amazing cars, the lifestyle. They don't see the struggle. So take us back to where maybe you had a breakthrough moment back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, so no, I did not I grew up with, my mom was a single mom and I was born in Long Beach. I never actually came up to this part of LA, Hollywood or Beverly Hills till I was probably in my 20s. So, you know, I grew up with not understanding how much opportunity there was in the world, and what really one thing that changed a lot for me was getting a mentor. Out of high school, I went with this guy, Joel Salatin, and he was a farmer, but he's really an entrepreneur, a marketer, an author, and so he started like retraining my brain, which is what I think most of us need, because the education system's not going to do it for you.
So that was the first person that made you think differently. That's when you're like, oh shit,
especially as
possible.
entrepreneurship, for sure. Yeah, made me think creatively. He made me, you know, Joel was just here not too long ago, came out to visit me, and he said, you know, Tai, I don't know how people can sleep with all the opportunity that exists in the world. And I was thinking, that's such a different mentality than
most say there's not enough.
Yeah, if you watch the debates with Trump versus Hillary, it's full of, you know, the sky is falling and everything's horrible. And there is a lot of bad still in the world, but there's no better time to have lived now than right now. So if you could go back 100 years ago, you thought slavery, women couldn't vote, there was, wealth was definitely in the hands of very few. You know, you had like the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, but now you have in America, you have a million plus millionaires. You have Evan Spiegel, who started Snapchat. I think he was a billionaire at 24. So the opportunities now are much more limited by what you can imagine, what you can believe, what you can be creative about. And so I always say, if you're a millennial, whatever problems you have, whether it's not liking your job, your income, you have to think innovation. So you have to go, how do I innovate my way out of a problem? If you can innovate your way out of problems, you can go pretty far. Yeah, not everybody's gonna beat Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg, but you don't need to. You know, you just need to make enough money that you like your life. And that's kind of how I try to optimize stuff. Somebody playing little basketball out here.
No, that's huge though, because a lot of people, don't see all the opportunities. So you need someone to expand your horizons and open your perspective, which is what you have. I don't think a lot of millennials have that.
Right.
To where they're still thinking, man, I need to settle for this certain job, when if they actually got clear on who they were and their strengths, they could really be selective.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I think that right now you can pretty much design a life 100%. For yourself. So if you like traveling, there's a way to figure out a career around traveling. It might be travel blogging, you know, it's probably not a travel agent like it once was, but it's endorsements, it's you know, real estate where you're traveling, it's investing.
Even paid off traffic from the website. I mean, there's a lot of different ideas.
So I think that now I tell people, what you gotta do is you gotta find like a roadmap. You have to find somebody else who's already done it before. And if you can do that, you know, the brain is funny because the brain doesn't have that much faith. That's why the brain pretty much believes whatever's in front of it. So that's why even the smartest person, if you take them to a scary movie, they might jump, even though you logically know that there's nothing
and you're
there.
Expecting it almost.
Yeah, and you're expecting it. The music, the emotional buildup has everybody jumping out of their seat. Now, when it comes to like picking a career or being an entrepreneur, it's the same way. If you only saw, like my mom probably never made more than 20 or 30 grand a year as a single mom. My stepdad worked at the post office, so he probably made at his peak, 50 or 60 grand. So your brain can probably just fathom that that's the peak. That's what you
Especially if you're growing up with that.
Yeah, and maybe you think, well, maybe my parents made 60, maybe I can make 80. And when you start, faith is what very few people have, and that's where you start going. And I'm not talking about religious faith. I'm talking about faith in what you haven't yet done, but you know somebody's done it. So mentors, what they did for me is a mentor in front of me now started, my brain didn't have to have much faith. I was like, okay, Joel Salatin's living this cool lifestyle, you know? So why not? And that's what I said, that's the biggest failing in the modern, let's see if I can get this. Just go and do that for 15 minutes.
Let's do it.
First take. We have a
now you gotta add value while you're spinning the ball.
Switch fingers.
First interview, double spin. Step up, camera Pete. What?
Pistol Pete Maravich
I love that movie.
did it for like 17 hours or something like
on
that.
the train, or on the track and stuff. That was one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. I actually went to play basketball in the same league as Pistol Pete. John Wall. That's
Oh, really?
John Wall's school. Yeah.
Oh.
Rotten. So. But yeah, so for me, mentors, that's what, and they still do that for me now. Anytime I want to get into business, I want to learn something new.
They cut your learning curve in half.
Exactly, or more.
Yeah.
10. I think they cut 10 years off the curve.
So there's
usually.
millennials. So we watch movies growing up, and I'm just thinking about relating to me and possibly you. We watch movies as when we were young. We see the Michael Jordans,
Right.
but I think a lot of people instantly separate themselves. Well, I
Right.
can't do that.
Right.
They don't realize that they were once at the bottom.
Right.
So a mentor bridges the gap to where now you're like, wow, that's actually possible.
Yeah. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and there's a saying, a black belt is just a white belt who never gave up.
Yeah, it's
You
true.
know, and a lot of entrepreneurs like that. Some people have more potential, like, you know, Jeff Bezos, these guys, Warren Buffett, are very, very high capacity. And so I don't necessarily lie to people and say, look, every person's gonna become a billionaire. That's not a realistic, it's not mathematically possible. But what is possible is usually to do about 5 times more than you thought you could do. So if you figured at your peak, you know, you can make 100 grand a year or something, you can probably, almost every person, figure out how to make 500 grand, you know, or maybe $1 million. And that's enough. At the end of the day, you need to make, if you can get to 6 figures, Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize as an economist, and he said, if you can make about 70, 80 grand a year, a little bit under 6 figures.
Autopilot, right?
Yeah, you could be, if you keep your expenses down, and then from there you can go up, and usually your income goes in a curve. In your prime earning years, you know, you make a lot more than you do when you're 70 or when you're 15. So.
And people are scared, I think, to invest the money back in themselves and their team.
Right.
You obviously have expenses to pay for your team, so that's motivating because you have people counting on you.
Right.
Same with me. So what he's saying is create something where you can make 70, 80 a year residually to where you can now do really the things you love and you don't have to worry or stress about money, because there's something I think that unlocks the brain, and you're creative when you don't have to worry about, shit, when's my next bill due? Oh my gosh,
Right.
when's the next money?
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
you're so much more resourceful.
Yeah.
I got the ball.
I mean, the number one cause of divorce is financial problems.
Isn't divorce about love?
Yeah.
And the number one cause
But
is
money is
it's hilarious.
Money is like gas in the tank. You could have a Ferrari, but you don't fill it up with gas. It's slower than a moped. And so your life, you know, you can be married to the right person. You can even be relatively happy, healthy, and all that. But if you don't have any fuel in the tank, then you're always frustrated.
It's true.
And I've had that before when you've got a great, I mean, a lot of people, half the people watching this probably have $1 million idea, but they don't know how to get it off the ground, you know? How do you start when you don't have that much experience? And that's why I say you got to find a GPS. Life is like, if you land on an airport in a new city, you don't know where you're going, and you try to get to somebody's house, the odds of you getting there are not very good. And even if you do, it's going to take you 5-10 times longer. You get a GPS, all of a sudden, boom, you're taking all the side streets, you're getting there in the quickest possible time. Well, that's the same thing with life. That's what the education system was supposed to do. It's supposed to be a GPS. It's supposed to equip you with social skills, how to do business networking, how to read people, how to pick business partners, how to pick who you date, who love best how to not get betrayed by people, how to build a company, how to understand investing, finances, you know, managing your money, making money work for you, and all that.
I didn't learn any of that.
No, you learn isosceles triangles and
Pythagorean theorems.
Yeah. So, but that's the good thing now is, even though the education system has made it that way, nowadays you can self-educate. I was just posted on my Instagram a YouTube story a YouTube quote from Jim Rohn. He said, college education can make you a living, but self-education can make you a fortune. And so you there's nothing necessary. I'm a college dropout, but there's people, one of my business partners made a company that does about $1 million a day in revenue, and he has a PhD. So he went,
sometimes it helps.
Yeah, some people, depends on your profession. If you want to be a medical doctor, I would become, you gotta go to school.
But a lot of the stuff millennials want to do doesn't require that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, a lot of that.
And a lot of things you can do is you can go to college. I think one of the problems is that people think you have to finish school in 4 years. If I don't have kids, but if I did, I'd be like, go to school over 10 years, take a few classes a semester. It'll cut your debt down. It'll also cut your stress level down. You'll actually learn stuff. And then the other big thing is, you can come in here if you want. We can sit, get some books. The other big thing is then you can do other stuff at the same time. So you can have a side business. You can pursue internships, careers. So people rush through school. I'm not sure where that came from, but.
Well, I think there's a pressure a lot from parents. And I think a lot of parents.
But it's just a made up one. Why 4?
Of course, most of them are made up.
6, why not 2? Why not 9? Like what? It's just.
Where'd they get $40K for an average education?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's $1.2 trillion in college debt. I just read. So that's more than the U.S. trade deficit and more than we spent on.
But a part of me feels like
military.
it's designed that way. I mean, we could talk about this for days. So you look at all these. So let's pick out real quick. There's no structure. We're both not structured people, so there's no structure to this. What's your top 2 or 3? Not top, but just in general. A book the millennials should read to really get clarity on who they are, to really help them figure out themselves.
Oh, there's a lot here. Let me see if I have one of my favorites. There's a book by, it's called The One Thing.
J. Papasan.
And so that's a great one to start with. Where is that book? I don't have it. I have it somewhere else. But if you go to tailopez.com/books, I have like my top 100 recommendations. Actually, a good book. Do I have it here?
How do you find your?
This is a great one. Here's a good start. Here's a good one for those of you who want to be an entrepreneur. It's one of the most respected authors, Eric Ries, The Lean Startup. Tells you how to start without having to have millions of dollars and without making big mistakes, by being able to pivot quickly and build something relatively on a low budget.
So mistakes. Where have you seen millennials, young entrepreneurs? You get a lot of people reaching out to you all the time. Where do you see entrepreneurs mess up over and over and over and over again? Where you just want to shake them and be like, stop doing
Probably
this.
the number one thing is, it depends. So here's my advice for successful entrepreneurs. Most successful entrepreneurs get bored too quick and move on to a new project before they tap into the earning potential of what's already working.
Makes sense.
Now, for non-successful ones who never get one that's actually working, probably the biggest flaw is being too in love with their initial idea. The odds of your first idea being your best one. Oh, here's one in the book. Yeah, Gary Keller. One Thing. It's a New York Times bestseller. I've contributed a lot to this becoming the #1 book, but
and you're continuing to do that.
no, it's a good book. I don't get paid to promote that book, but I should.
I know Jay. Jay, let's get him some kickback.
Wasn't he over here? Jay?
No, you didn't call Gary.
All right, yeah, Gary. He's a smart guy, real estate guy. So
they fall in love with their first idea and they're like, if that fails, they feel like their life's over almost.
You have to more think of the end goal. So let's say your end goal is creating a company that gives you the lifestyle you want. So then let's say your first idea is an app. So you build the app doesn't work, who cares? Because your end goal wasn't to build an app. The end goal was, I want to make 80 grand a year, low stress, and be able to travel 3 months out of the year. So as long as you keep the end goal in mind, that's one of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey's book, is you got to keep the end goal in mind. So beginner entrepreneurs, they forget that the reason they're doing it, the reason isn't to make an app. I mean, Instagram was founded by a guy who tried to make an address book, and he was smart. When he saw nobody cared about an address book, he just switched it to a photo blog platform and named it Instagram, and 3 years later he sold it for right around $1 billion. And that's a good example of someone who
Pivoting.
just said, his end goal was to make something successful. So he didn't care if it was an address book or a photo. And it's very hard. It's because there's a psychological bias in our brain called the commitment consistency bias. We're structured the way our DNA, 99% of humans is, once you commit to liking Hillary Clinton, or you commit to liking Donald Trump, or you commit to liking your app idea, no matter how much conflicting evidence comes in, you won't change your mind. I actually was watching a political little video with CNN, and it was talking about, and I'm not really that political, so they said Hillary Clinton, there was a Hillary Clinton defender and a Donald Trump defender, and the Donald Trump one said, well, Hillary Clinton smashed phones with a hammer to hide the stuff. And the Hillary supporter goes, I don't believe that. We need to fact check it. So she calls her CNN guy and says, fact check it. And the Hillary fact checker goes, that's actually true. And you saw her face, she didn't change at all. She still didn't, she was still like, well, it doesn't matter.
She already made the decision.
Exactly. And I'm not saying Hillary is wrong, or because Donald Trump has all kinds of insanity things he's done. But when you apply that to your own life and your own business, you don't want to be somebody who, when somebody gives you better evidence, like, hey, this address book app, nobody's downloading it. Let's kill this app and change it over to photos. If you can be that person who's not stubborn, you will go far in life. In fact, maybe I'll end with this. This is a good thing that I tell people sometimes, that I tell myself. The 3 things that'll make you unsuccessful in life. The 3 biggest, and there's lots of stuff that'll make you unsuccessful. Number 1 is what I just talked about, stubbornness. If you can't adapt, you're gonna be far behind in the game of life. The number 2 thing is thin-skinned or sensitive. And you see this all the time. You probably posted something on your Facebook or your Instagram and you hurt somebody's feelings. And you're thinking, don't get your feelings hurt. This wasn't even posted about you, right? So we live in a world where everybody's triggered. Don't be that triggered person. If you want to be it's kind of like being a UFC fighter.
Gotta have thick skin.
There's no UFC fighters that are thin-skinned. There's no I know some of the Lakers,
hit me.
pro athletes. These guys are thick-skinned. T.O., the football player, is a friend of mine. We shoot a little YouTube series sometimes. This guy is the thickest skin guy. Like, I got one of my staff and him try to like flame each other for how they're dressing. And you can see T.O. is unfazed. And I told Andrew, I said, Drew, T.O. is a championship, probably Hall of Fame football player. Do you think he's gonna get hurt feelings from a 21-year-old making fun of his clothes? He has infinite thick skin. So you gotta have thick skin. And then the third thing is pride. And see, sometimes that's why people won't change their business idea. Because they feel like, oh, then I'm admitting that I didn't have it right the first time. Well, basically, the average millionaire, the first 2 businesses they launch fail. So the average millionaire, it's only the 3rd business that's successful. So if you're too proud and you stick with the failing business forever, you're gonna be poor. That's the simplest way to think about it.
Huge. Well, I challenge you guys to conceptualize this, because this is stuff that's took you years to figure out, and you haven't just figured out, you've executed and seen an amazing lifestyle come out of that, as well as a great business. So I appreciate your time, man. Hope you guys got some value. We're gonna continue the conversation later. Appreciate it.